Today we will be looking at the properties of rational functions. We will use quotients of polynomials to describe the graphs of rational functions, predict the effects of parameter changes, describe limitations on the domains and ranges, and examine asymptotic behavior. We will also answer some basic questions you may have about rational functions. Here are some typical questions asked. What is a rational function? What is the standard form for a rational function? How can a rational function change? How are domain and range affected? What are asymptotes of a rational function? A rational function is an equation that has the parent graph of 1 divided by x, or also seen as 1 over x. Let's look at the graph. 1 over x has two asymptotes, each of them at the value of 0. The horizontal asymptote is at y equals 0 because y can never have the value of 0. The vertical asymptote is at x equals 0 because there is no dividing by 0. The standard form for a rational equation is a times 1 over x minus h plus k. A is the stretched compressed value, h moves the center of the graph right or left, and is also the value of the vertical asymptote. K moves the center up or down, and is also the same value of the horizontal asymptote. Now we'll compare a changed equation to the parent equation. Our changed equation is y equals 2 times 1 over x minus 8 plus 3. It is stretched by a factor of 2, moved right by 8, and up by 3. Our new asymptotes are vertical asymptote at x equals 8 and horizontal asymptote at y equals 3. The domain and range are mainly affected by the asymptotes of the graph. Domain is affected by the h factor, range by the k factor. Domain is affected by the vertical asymptote. In the parent function, x can never be 0. It comes close, but will not touch 0. In the changed function, shown earlier, x can never be 8. This is caused by the value of h. Other than the values that are affected by the vertical asymptotes, the domain is unrestricted. Therefore, it looks a lot like this. Negative infinity is less than the value of the vertical asymptote, which is less than infinity. So for the parent function, it's negative infinity, less than 0, less than infinity. The changed function's domain is negative infinity, 8, infinity. Range is affected by the horizontal asymptote. In the parent graph, y can never be 0. In the second graph, y cannot be 3. Range limitations are caused by the factor of k. Range values are unrestricted except for the value of the horizontal asymptote. Therefore, range is shown like this. Negative infinity is less than the value of the horizontal asymptote, which is less than infinity. So the parent function's range is negative infinity is less than 0, which is less than infinity. The changed function is negative infinity less than 3, which is less than infinity. Let's go back over the typical questions. What is a rational function? What is the standard form for a rational function? How can a rational function change? How are domain and range affected? What are asymptotes of a rational function? Now let's go over those questions as a review. A rational function is a function with the parent graph of 1 over x. It contains asymptotes. The standard form of the equation is a times 1 divided by x minus h plus k. A function changes by the values of a, stretch compress, h, left right, and k, up down. The center of the function moves to hk. This also changes the value of the asymptotes. Domain is affected by the value of the vertical asymptote. It can never touch that number. Range is affected by the horizontal asymptote. Asymptotes of a rational function are places where the graph will never touch them, only coming close to them. There is a horizontal asymptote and a vertical asymptote. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned all about the basics of rational functions.